Now, let's tell you about new measures to crack down on disruptive protests. They come into force today, including an expansion of police powers and a new criminal offence of tunnelling.
Authorities will now have powers to disperse static protests, a common tactic of groups like Just Stop Oil or Extinction Rebellion, where they glue themselves to the pavement or something.
Yeah, they just refuse to move. Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, really good to see you this morning. What do you make of all of this? Obviously protests have been going on for time immemorial. Are these sort of changes something we need?
These laws, sadly, are a reflection upon the liberal, fluffy and woke police leadership, which has, quite frankly, not used existing powers and has allowed protest groups to cause so much disruption by the slow walking and other tactics. If the police were more robust and they used the existing laws, then the Home Secretary would not be forced into a corner and would not have to bring about these new laws, which are simply designed to make the police do their job.
The trouble is, some of these, the way protesters are protesting nowadays, they've thought it through. It makes the police look stupid and unable to do their jobs properly, doesn't it? It actually makes them a laughingstock.
Yes, but there is so much existing legislation that the very simple laws, such as behaviour likely to cause a breach of the peace, which could be used if the police leadership was stronger, was more robust, and was actually on the side of every working man and woman in the country. For example, this slow walking, which has been a plague upon our major cities, particularly London. There is a raft of public order legislation, behaviour likely to cause a breach of the peace, loads of laws which, if the police had done their job and got rid of these people out of the roads so that people could go about their daily business, then there would be no need for these new laws. But the police have simply failed us all. So the Home Secretary has had to do something, and so we see these new laws coming into power today.
What I don't understand, Peter, with all of this, and you see it with we've seen protests where people are getting pints of milk in supermarkets and pouring them on the floor, or, as you say, walking in front of vehicles very slowly. If we did that as individual members of the public, we'd just be carted off, wouldn't we? I mean, you get arrested on the spot, so I don't understand why, if you're a protest group, you somehow get away with it.
But you've hit on such an important point, and this is where the police have been repeatedly failing us. Well, today, it might be a pint of milk, it might be a milkshake that is thrown over a protester, but I don't want these things to escalate. What might be a milkshake today could turn out to be, for example, and I dread the thought, but it could be battery acid tomorrow, and so things could escalate. But I make no apology for reinforcing the fact that the police have been too fluffy over all of this. They have simply failed to do their job, and that is a failing of police leadership, with so many laws that could have been applied to get these protesters out of the road and allow the traffic to flow and people to go about their business. That hasn't happened, and so, of course, the Home Secretary, who I'm sure is as frustrated as so many people that I hear from, has had to bring in these new laws.
But what about the people who say, well, this is actually damaging the right to protest? Because that in itself is important, isn't it?
It is a fundamental cornerstone of being a part of a flagship democracy. And of course, the police understand that. It's not so many years ago that the police marched on Parliament themselves. But fluffy, woke, liberal police leadership has failed us all. Police officers have not been robust. They have not been supported by the leadership to get these people out of the road lawfully, robustly, legitimately. They have facilitated so much of this protest, to the frustration of the great British public, who have watched the police walking side by side, facilitating this disruption instead of quite simply getting on with their job.
Well, these new measures come into force today, but the leaders that you just mentioned there, the police leaders, are still there, the fluffy ones, as you call them. So is anything going to change? Is it going to help the situation?
I sincerely hope so, because I've noticed a particular ramping up of the anti-Just Stop Oil social media chat this week. And we've seen milk or milkshakes being thrown over protesters. We've seen clips from other countries whereby these protesters have been physically removed by members of the public. We don't want that to happen. I do not want the public taking the law into their own hands. So I would urge the public to step aside, let the police do their job, and I would also urge the police to grow a spine, to do their job, to allow people to get to hospital appointments, to get their kids to school on time, and for people to go to work, all the other things that we need to do every day of our lives, and do their job. Get these people out of the road, get people to stop tunnelling, for example, which applies to so many of these laws today, so that people can just go about their daily business.
Peter, what's the difference between, you talk about the fluffy leadership, but what's the difference between the leadership's view on all of this in the police and rank and file?
I think, well, that's a very, very good question. I think some of this woke fluffiness has, sadly, filtered down to the rank and file. But if the rank and file are paying close attention to social media in regards to these disruptive protests, then they will see just how angry the public are, just how much people want to be able to go about their business. And at the end of the day, there's a 200-year-old principle which was brought about by Sir Robert Peel that said the police are the public and the public are the police. Well, if the police are the public, listen to what the public are saying. Get these people out of the streets and let everybody get on with their daily business.
Peter, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.